Hello world, this is Stefan of Lendergan Games. As of November 9th, I've implemented a stabbing dagger and a wooden stick that will become the starting weapon. Of course, because of the particular dagger I chose to add, I've had to add armor piercing into how combat plays out. Beyond that though, I've started making an actual progression so that harder enemies and stronger equipment show up in later levels. In a separate happy accident, I fixed some stuttering that would show up at later levels and now know it was happening because of how I had coded level transitions. Looking into next week, leather armor should be simple considering I'm retreading a process I already did for iron armor. Before I go into my ramble, it has come to my attention that roughly 99% of the people watching this are not subscribed. If you're not subscribed, I highly recommend that you do you. Subscriptions on YouTube are kind of broken anyway. However, if you enjoy seeing the game making process, or if you enjoy cooperative gaming, join the Lendergan Games Discord, link in the description. At least the notifications work there. Now, to start this ramble, I want to make one thing clear. Anyone who thinks that for Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, and Quake 3, anything under 60 frames per second is unacceptable, that person obviously puts too much stock into his hand-me-down opinions. I can't believe I have to say this in current year, but when playing Counter-Strike, anything under 144 frames is just hobbling along. In fast-paced shooters, not only does the extra frames per second provide more margin for error for reactions, the faster frame time also makes the game visually react to the player that much sooner. In games where milliseconds matter, playing in only 60 frames per second is like using a V6 engine for racing. That said, what the frame rate needs to match is the rate of interaction. By and large, 60 frames per second really is the best frame rate for most games. For Tomb Raider, Tekken, Spyro, Minecraft, League of Legends, and most games that aren't high-speed first-person shooters, a 60th of a second is a sure enough increment for granting leeway to the player. 1/30th of a second, meanwhile, is not. For all the talk about games wanting to be so-called cinematic, action gaming at 30 frames per second is as awkward as cinema at 60. I don't know why movie publishers decided to make things more expensive for themselves, but the over 24 frame rate doesn't put the audience in the action as advertised, but instead puts them on set, basically turning the movie into a stage play. Consequently, that's also why action games need the higher frame rate, to put the player on the set so he can play his part. And then there's turn-based games, such as what I'm making. Unlike the Order 1886, turn-based games can survive 30 frames per second because they don't demand instant reaction. With my own game, I'm working towards quarter-second cinematics for attacking and magic and whatnot, and like I said before, a critical piece of movie magic is a lower frame rate. Nonetheless, please don't interpret this as a turn-based games should be 30 frames per second. The optimal frame rate for each one is a case-by-case thing, and I'm just saying that working on a lower frame rate is a luxury that Final Fantasy Tactics can afford and the Order 1886 can't.